Rain fell quietly over Seoul, not loud enough to disturb the city, yet heavy enough to soak every unspoken emotion hidden beneath the streets. Neon lights blurred into soft colors on the wet roads, and among thousands of people walking past each other, two souls were about to collide in a way destiny had planned long ago. Han Seo-jun stood under the bus stop shelter, holding a thin file close to his chest. His hair was damp, his coat slightly too big for his lean frame, and his eyes, dark and tired, kept drifting toward the hospital building across the road. He had just finished another 12-hour shift as a surgical intern. No applause, no gratitude, just exhaustion and responsibility far heavier than his age. Seo-jun was not born into comfort. His father had passed away when he was 16, leaving behind dead, a sick mother, and a boy forced to grow up overnight. Since then, Seo-jun had learned one rule of life: don't expect kindness, earn survival. The bus was late. Again, he sighed and loosened his grip on the file. Inside it were medical reports, his mother's. He hadn't told her yet. He didn't know how. Sometimes silence felt kinder than truth. That was when he noticed her. She was standing just a few steps away, struggling with a broken umbrella that refused to open properly. Rain slid down her long hair, soaking her light blue sweater. She looked annoyed, but not angry, more like someone who had accepted disappointment as a familiar friend. Seo-jun glanced away. Helping strangers was not his habit. Life had taught him that attachments came with costs. But then she slipped, not dramatically, not loudly, just one small misstep on the wet pavement. Before he could think, his body moved. Seo-jun caught her arm, steadying her before she could fall completely. The umbrella clattered to the ground. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, embarrassed. "I wasn't looking." "It's okay," he replied, letting go almost immediately. She looked up. For a moment, the world paused. Her eyes were warm, like sunlight breaking through clouds after rain. There was a quiet strength in them, mixed with vulnerability that felt painfully familiar. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'm Yune." "Seo-jun," he replied. Their conversation ended there. The bus arrived, people rushed in. Yune picked up her broken umbrella, smiled once more, and disappeared into the crowd. Seo-jun thought that would be the end. He was wrong. Yune worked at a small publishing house tucked between cafes and flower shops. She loved books not because they promised happy endings, but because they allowed pain to make sense. Her mother had died when she was young, and her father, kind but distant, had buried himself in work. Yene learned early how to be independent, how to smile even when loneliness followed her like a shadow. That evening, she sat at her desk, typing mechanically while her thoughts drifted back to the stranger at the bus stop, Seo-jun. She didn't know why his face stayed with her. Maybe it was the tired kindness in his eyes, or maybe it was the way he let go so quickly, as if afraid of holding on. Across the city, Seo-jun lay awake in his small apartment, staring at the ceiling. The rain had stopped, but his mind hadn't. He replayed the moment again and again. How her arm felt fragile under his grip. How her voice sounded like it carried warmth meant for someone else. "Stop," he muttered to himself. He had no time for distractions. Life didn't pause for feelings. Fate, however, had other plans. 2 weeks later, Seo-jun was rushing through the hospital corridor when he collided with someone carrying a stack of papers. Everything fell. "I'm so sorry," she exclaimed. He looked down. "Yune." "You," she said, surprised. "Bus stop guy." He almost smiled. "Umbrella girl," he replied. She laughed, the sound light and genuine. It echoed in the sterile hallway, breaking the hospital's cold silence. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I work here," he said simply. She nodded, then hesitated. "My father, he's been admitted. Heart condition." Seo-jun's expression softened. "Which ward?" she told him. Without thinking, he said, "I'll check on him." Yene blinked. "You don't have to." "I want to," he said. And for the first time in years, Seo-jun realized something terrifying. He meant it. Over the next few days, their paths crossed again and again. Seo-jun checked on her father during rounds. Yone brought coffee for him when she noticed his shaking hands. They spoke in quiet moments, about books, about dreams they never said out loud, about fears that felt safer when shared. One evening, they sat on the hospital rooftop, city lights glowing beneath them. "Do you believe people meet by chance?" Yune asked. Seo-jun thought for a moment. "No." "Then what do you believe?" "I think some people meet to teach each other something, even if they don't stay." Her smile faded slightly. "That sounds lonely." "It's realistic," he replied. Yune looked at him, really looked at him. "Maybe you're just afraid to stay." The words hit deeper than he expected. He didn't respond. Their bond grew quietly, like a song played at low volume. Easy to miss, impossible to forget. Seo-jun never held her hand, never crossed lines. He kept distance, even as his heart leaned closer. Yuna noticed. One night, after her father was discharged, she walked Seo-jun to the bus stop, the same one where they first met. "It's funny," she said. "Everything started here?" "Yes," he agreed. Rain began to fall again. She looked at him, hesitation clear in her eyes. "Said Joan, if you ever need someone." "I can't," he interrupted. She flinched. He corrected himself, voice low. "I don't know how to rely on anyone." Silence stretched between them. Then Yune did something unexpected. She gently took his hand. Not tightly, not urgently, just enough to say, "I'm here." I will hold your hand, she said, for as long as you let me. Seo-jun's chest tightened. His first instinct was to pull away, but he didn't. The rain soaked them both as they stood there, hands joined, unaware that this moment would change everything. Because love, once allowed in, never leaves quietly. The warmth of Yune's hand stayed with Seo-jun long after they let go that night. Even as he walked back to his apartment, soaked and shivering, something inside him felt unbearably alive. It frightened him more than exhaustion ever had. For days he avoided her. Not because he didn't want to see her, but because he wanted to see her too much. Seo-jun buried himself in work, volunteering for extra shifts, avoiding the cafe near the hospital where Yune sometimes waited with a book and 2 cups of coffee. Every time he thought of her gentle grip, the promise in her words echoed in his mind. I will hold your hand for as long as you let me. He wasn't sure he deserved that kind of devotion. Yune noticed his absence immediately. She didn't call him. She didn't confront him. She simply waited, believing that some distances were not meant to be chased but understood. Still, the silence hurt. It reminded her of her mother, how people disappeared quietly, leaving behind unanswered questions. One evening, Yuna finally went to the hospital alone. She asked a nurse where Seo-jun was. On emergency rotation, the nurse said, he's barely sleeping. Yune's heart sank. She waited. Hours passed. Midnight arrived when Seo-jun finally stepped out of the emergency ward, his face pale and eyes hollow. He froze upon seeing her sitting on a bench, knees pulled close to her chest. You shouldn't be here, he said softly. I know, she replied, but I am. He sat beside her, leaving a careful distance. Why are you avoiding me? She asked. Seo-jun stared at the floor. Because every time I see you, I forget how to protect myself. She turned to him. And maybe protecting yourself isn't always the same as saving yourself. He laughed bitterly. You don't know my life. Then tell me, she said. Silence wrapped around them like a second skin. Finally, Seo-jun spoke. My mother is sick. Chronic kidney failure. She needs surgery. Long-term care. I don't have money. I barely have time. I live every day knowing one mistake could destroy everything. Yune listened without interrupting. I can't love someone properly, he continued. Not when I'm already drowning. She placed her hand over his. You don't have to love me properly. Just honestly. His breath caught. Despite his fears, Seo-jun stopped running. They didn't rush into labels or promises. Their relationship grew slowly, shaped by stolen moments. Late night meals from vending machines, quiet walks home. Yune reading aloud while Seo-jun pretended not to listen. For the first time, Seo-jun felt something close to peace. Until reality struck. One afternoon, Seo-jun was called into the director's office. We've received a recommendation for you, the director said. A medical fellowship in the United States. Full funding. Exceptional opportunity. Seo-jun's world tilted. The fellowship meant everything. Financial stability, career growth, the ability to save his mother. But it also meant leaving Yoon-A. For years, he nodded mechanically and left the office. That night, he didn't tell her. Yuna sensed something was wrong. Seo-jun grew distant again. Not cold but heavy. Like someone carrying a secret too large to share. She found out by accident. A congratulatory email popped up on his phone while he was asleep beside her on the couch. She didn't read much, just enough. Her chest tightened. The confrontation came the next day at the riverbank where they often walked. You're leaving? Yune said quietly. Seo-jun stopped. Yes. When were you going to tell me? I didn't know how. How long? 5 years. Maybe more. She nodded slowly, tears burning her eyes. And you decided alone. I had to, he said. This is my only chance. I understand, she whispered. I just didn't expect to be excluded from your future. He reached for her hand. She pulled away. The weeks before his departure were heavy with unspoken words. They still met, still smiled, still pretended, but every goodbye felt sharper than the last. On the night before Seo-jun's flight, Yone invited him to her apartment. She cooked his favorite meal. They laughed like old times, avoided the ticking clock. When it was time to leave, he stood at the door, unable to move. I don't want to go, he said. She smiled through tears. Then don't. He shook his head. If I stay, I regret it. If I go... She stepped closer and placed her forehead against his chest. Then promise me one thing. Anything. Don't forget how it felt to be held. Even once. His voice broke. I won't. At the airport, Yuna stood behind the glass barrier watching June disappear into the crowd. She didn't cry until he was gone. Years passed. Life moved on. Seo-jun thrived academically. His mother's surgery was successful. He became the doctor he once dreamed of being. But every achievement felt incomplete. He never forgot Yene. He wrote emails he never sent. Saved messages he never typed. Her memory lived in quiet corners of his life. Back in Seoul, Yuna published her first novel. It was about 2 people who promised to hold hands but were separated by time. It became a bestseller. 5 years later, Seo-jun felt familiar yet distant. On his first day back, he walked without thinking to the old bus stop. Rain fell. Of course it did. He smiled sadly. Then he saw her. Yuna stood there holding an umbrella that worked this time. Their eyes met. Time stopped. Seo-jun, she whispered. Yene. They stood inches apart, years of silence pressing between them. He said. She nodded. I lived it. I never stopped. She raised her hand gently. I know. The rain intensified. CO June hesitated, then reached out. This time, when he took her hand, he didn't let go. I'm not leaving again, he said. Not without asking you to walk with me. Tears streamed down her face as she smiled. I waited a long time to hear that. They stood there, hand in hand, as the rain washed away the years they lost. Love didn't erase the past, but it gave it meaning. And this time, when Seo Jun held Yune's hand, he understood something finally. Some promises are not meant to be kept perfectly. They are meant to be kept forever. Teach END.